call.
Trustee Benucci?
Here.
Trustee Fay?
Here.
Trustee Lamb?
Here.
Trustee Peck?
Here.
Trustee Rassich?
Here.
Trustee Rippey? Mayor Collins?
Here, if we rise for the pledge.
We're seeking a motion to approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole workshop held on June 23rd.
Second.
That motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Presidential comments?
None this evening.
Trustees' comments?
Well, other than Plainfield Fest, but that starts this next weekend.
No trustee comments? Then this would be the time for public comments on items not on the agenda, not to exceed 3 to 5 minutes per topic. There are no public comments, and we'll proceed with the workshop meeting. First item on the agenda is Salami Concept Plan, and that has been removed at the request of the applicant. The next item is Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm Doug Kissel. I'm with the Plainfield Public Works, but I'm also the representative member for the Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition from the Village of Plainfield. Tonight, I wanted to ask Jennifer Hammer, the watershed coordinator, to come on down here and give us a run-through briefly of what's been happening in the Lower DuPage as far as what the organization has been doing. Essentially, we've been having regular meetings at which we get together with the other members of the area, other towns that are along the DuPage, and we try to make a plan for those things that need to be done to improve the conditions of the river. It's one of the things that we do to try to reach out and stay in contact with our surrounding communities, and at the same time we're worrying about what's going on in the environment. Jennifer is going to come up here in a moment, and she's going to give you an overview of the things that have occurred in 2013 and thus far in 14, and then where we're headed in the future. With that, I ask Jennifer Hammer to come on up and walk us through.
Thank you. I came, I believe it was last September, and gave a similar presentation with Doug last year to go through what we've been working on at that point. Just to orient ourselves really quickly here, map of the Lower DuPage River, basically coming from about the DuPage County line up in Naperville, Bolingbrook area, all the way down to Channahon, where it discharges into the Des Plaines River. Those are the list of towns that we have representation from on the work group, on the coalition. I guess one thing that we were really happy of last year was getting financial support from all of the communities within the watershed, as well as a number of park districts and consultants that have been active in our group. This has helped us to go forward with our biological assessments. So we ran our first assessments in 2012, and we'll be running another assessment next year we'll talk a little bit more about. We were able to ask for and receive data from all of the treatment plants within the watershed, and that helped us with our gathering data of all the types of data that's available for water quality and help us with our planning as we go forward. Last year we also purchased 3 Hawk multi-parameter probes. They're probes that we install out into the river that collect data on a continuous basis. Actually, the treatment plant here in Plainfield operates 2 of them already. Joliet operates 1, Naperville operates 2, and now we'll have 3 more to cover the rest of the main stem, and those are now operating in the river. We also held 2 winter de-icing workshops, basically focusing on how we can reduce the impacts of road salt while still maintaining public safety. Road salt's one of the largest stormwater-related pollutants that we're seeing impacting the stream. And so we're working with other organizations in northeastern Illinois to put those workshops on. Also, I'm employed by the Conservation Foundation, and we contract staffing to the Lower DuPage River watershed. So we work a lot with the Conservation Foundation programs as well, one of those being the Conservation at Home program. And we did presentations through the Lower DuPage on the Conservation at Home program in Plainfield, in Bolingbrook, and in Joliet last year. And actually we're working very closely with Conservation Plainfield on that Conservation at Home program. And we did some work to update and expand our website. So going into 2014, the latest breaking news last week, finally got a letter from the IRS that we received our 501c3 status. It was a long haul getting there. It took nearly a year to get from the point we submitted the paperwork to finally get things back from them. The government shutdown last fall didn't help. But so that is a big step for us moving forward. The BOW assessment report from our 2012 data collection will be available in August. We've had a draft to review within the committee, and we'll have the final out in August. We're preparing for our sampling season next year. So the idea was that we would collect data in the river every 3 years, so that we would start out with collecting a baseline, and then moving forward being able to look at trends in the watershed as different projects went in, to see as we're doing different management activities or we're changing practices, like working on reducing the amount of salt we're putting in, that we can start actually looking at hopefully being able to document improvements even if they're incremental. So next year we'll actually be adding about 17 new sites. So we'll have approximately 42 sites within that watershed area that we showed on the map. We'll be collecting fish, bugs, water chemistry, sediment chemistry, and habitat data. And that information will be used with the previous set of data that we had to create what we call a prioritization tool. So to be able to look at the segment by segment, looking at the river and looking at what types of practices or restoration projects would need to be accomplished in those sections of river to help bring them back up to meeting water quality goals set out by the U.S. and Illinois EPA. As I said, we bought the monitoring probes at the end of the summer last year. We've gotten the 3 new ones installed, one in Shorewood, one in Shanahan, and one in Minooka. And we'll be collecting data all the way through October. And really the biggest thing we're looking for there is dissolved oxygen and temperature. And it's during the summer months that data is important to have. And I'd like to thank Doug and his staff at the treatment plant for assisting with the calibration and data download for all of the probes that we're working in here. So I've been coming down once a month to work with his staff, and we bringing in the probes, cleaning them, downloading the data, and then getting them set to be redeployed. Let's see, we sent out membership invoices earlier this year. And up to this point, we've received $46,420 out of the $139,000 that have been invoiced. And those come in. We're expecting to see all of those invoices in probably by September, October. The villages have different budget cycles and that, so we work within that. We've also scheduled our next winter de-icing workshop for October 16th. We'll be holding it in New Lenox. We're doing that also in kind of concert with Will County, as well as the Will County Groundwater Planning Committee. So we've invited communities beyond just the borders of our watershed. Some of the other education and outreach activities that we're working on, we're holding 3 different teacher trainings on the Project Learning Tree, Growing Up Wild, and Project WET programs. The first one is actually going to be held here on August 8th, and that'll be geared towards early childhood teachers. Then one of the other things that we'll be working on through the coalition to get the word out on is Beyond the Basics Stormwater Best Management Practice Seminar that'll be coming up in September It's a seminar that I've worked on for the last 6 years, and we hold it every 18 months, and we work with all of our partners to help get the word out. And it's been a very well attended seminar with a lot of great information for municipal staff and consultants, really geared around how to better manage our stormwater. We're also working on trying to develop a program with the junior highs and high schools in the watershed to look at how we can create water quality messages through like poster contests, but also kind of moving into technology now, looking both at visual and print medias. So we're working on kind of the framework for the messages, and then working with the high school students to help create videos and other sound bites that we'd be able to use not only on our website, but also to be able to make available to other communities in the watershed to use to help get the word out about water quality issues. And we've also been working on some different handouts and materials that we can provide to communities to use in their newsletters or on their websites on different water related issues throughout the DuPage River watershed. I believe we showed pretty much the same slide last year. This kind of breaks down where our dues, how the dues break down by community, which communities are involved and how much they're putting forth. So the contribution from Plainfield, just a little over $21,000, makes up about 15% of the total funding. But you can also see how the funds that you are dedicating to this are being leveraged by all the communities in the watershed to really make a larger impact than you could on your own. As I mentioned, with our bioassessment program, we collect data on the things that live in the water, so the fish, the macroinvertebrates, the bugs, looking at habitat both in stream as well as along the streams, looking at water chemistry and sediment chemistry. We have sites selected across the watershed on the main stem as well as on all of the small tributaries. And again, the data is being used to really look at how we can target specific projects within particular reaches, not only projects that we might do, but also looking at other projects that are going on and figure out how we might be able to add a water quality component onto it. And even things like bridge crossings, particularly on our smaller tributaries, many of those culverts block fish passage. And so just with slight changes to a design, that impact can be removed. And so it's a way that the data will be available out there to anybody in the watershed, and a way to share that information so the better decisions can be made. It's a really nice flathead catfish that was caught here in Plainfield last year, or in 2012 when they did the sampling, just downstream of the 135th Street Bridge. So there's some really nice fish out there in the river. This is really just sort of an example of some of the data. So that there's another organization very similar to ours called the DuPage River Salt Creek Work Group, and they work on the east and west branches of the DuPage River as well as Salt Creek, mostly in DuPage County, parts of Cook County. And they've been at this since 2006. I've participated with that organization since about 2004, and the data collection was started in 2006. And so they're already on their third cycle of collecting data. And we've been able to learn a lot from them as well as partner with them, because when you're looking at things from a statistical standpoint, the bigger the data set, the more you're able to may have confidence in the comparisons that you make. So all of our data is actually being imported into the database that they're maintaining, and that database, at this point, we can request data out of it, but they're working on a public interface. So that really any member could just get on and look for specific data for any of the sites that are sampled. And through the report that'll come out in August, has a number of tables like this with comparisons to what's going on in the upper part of the watershed, and then what's going on in this part of the watershed. This is one of the pieces that we have available, both in print as well as in a PDF. That we've made available to communities, and just looking at ways that we can talk to residents about stormwater management, and really focusing on the things that they can do in their own neighborhoods, in their own properties, to help keep pollution out of our storm drains, as well as to help increase support for things that are going on, maybe in community parks or other village-owned properties that are managing stormwater, and helping to kind of change the way people look at how vegetation's being managed and native plants are being used as a way of a kind of part of the solution for stormwater management. One of the other things that has been, I think, really helpful and makes us feel good as we work on this is to see the support that we're gaining with Illinois EPA. And so this is something Doug pulled out of this report, the Illinois Statewide Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. So Illinois EPA is working with US EPA on how we're going to reduce nutrients across the state. Every state in the country is facing the need to develop standards for nutrients like phosphorus and potentially nitrogen. And so this is, I don't want to say the first step because Illinois has been working on this for a number of years, but this is a major step of putting this document together about how Illinois is going to focus on nutrient removal. And one of the things that they call out in there is in watersheds where there are groups like our organization, and we're already working to reduce the amount of nutrients going into the streams, that we're working a lot of the education and outreach, that we have all the players at the table, that those groups are going to have a higher priority when it comes to funding different projects. So, like I said, that helps us to know that we're heading in the right direction, that we know that we have the support of Illinois EPA for the work that we're doing. A little dark up here. It's a picture of our main page from the watershed, from our website. We've been putting more and more information on there, a lot of it geared towards residents, education and outreach type information, as well as information about the organization and membership. And the website there is DuPageRivers.org. And there's my contact information. Anybody has questions.
Jennifer, I do have a question.
Yeah.
When you mentioned monitoring tributaries that contribute to the river,
Mm-hmm.
can you give a little detail on that information?
You mean as far as which tributaries?
Which tributaries and what you do to monitor those?
So they're a part of the whole bioassessment. So when we're going out and doing every site, we collect fish, we collect macroinvertebrates, and we collect a certain amount of water chemistry. And so the smaller the tributary is, we may only visit it twice over the summer or 2 or 3 times over the summer, versus the main stem sites, we may visit 6 times over the summer to collect water chemistry. So depending on what's draining into that site, the complexity of it will collect more data. But fish, bugs, and habitat are collected at all sites. And then chemistry is collected at all sites, but at different levels. And then sediment chemistry is only collected at it's either 6 or 7 of the mainstream sites.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I kind of have a question. You kind of touched on it a little bit. What is the impact whatever you can answer here, but what is the impact when there's construction along the river? I mean, do they partner with you, or should they be partnering with this organization for the impact on, when you're building along the river like that, or even just putting in the bridges that we're working on some bridges with the Riverfront
I mean,
Foundation?
absolutely, that's something that we would like to be more involved with. And I think as we've been creating stronger partnerships and doing more and have more to bring to the table, it's easier to get those conversations started. And so as we've been able to make this data available, I think that helps to open up that conversation. We'd be happy to meet with people.
Great, thank you.
One of the things the village has had a lot of success with is the strategic plan effort. We started it a year and a half ago, I believe, and came up with some things that focus on, and that's really helped us to get results. It's also a very good communication tool. I don't know whether you've had a chance to look at what we're doing, or maybe Mr. Kissel can show you the kind of documents that we work with, but I think that may well help the public to understand what you're doing, and may well focus effort on the right kind of projects. It prioritizes things as well. You got a lot of things going on which are can be very productive in the long run. A couple other general questions, though. You're going to monitor the oxygen, dissolved oxygen, 8 places. How much does it cost to have the equipment to do that?
So each of the probes, I think we bought 3 probes for $18,000, so a little over $6,000 for the probe itself. And we were able to get a really good price break on them because we purchased them with the DuPage River Salt Creek watershed group. They've been using theirs since 2006. They're just starting to replace them, so they have a pretty good lifespan. They also come with a 3-year warranty, and then we'll have a bench agreement on them so that we'll be able to have them maintained. But they're a significant investment to put out there, but it also gives us really valuable data because the dissolved oxygen, it changes throughout the day. So during the day, the dissolved oxygen will go up because you have photosynthesis happening with the plants, but at night during respiration, plants and other biological activity can suck oxygen out of it, so you get this diurnal activity. And having the data, it's a way of looking at nutrient impacts in the river. And so it'll help us as nutrient standards are being developed across the state, and to look at, that we have data to have an idea of how much, say, phosphorus or nitrogen may be impacting our waterways, and may help us to kind of guide what we need to do to help to reduce that impact. There may also be things just habitat related. In the upper part of the watershed, they've removed a few of the dams on the West Branch, and on the East Branch, they removed a dam on the East Branch as well. And removing those dams addressed a lot of their dissolved oxygen issues because all the sediment piling up behind the dam was a huge sink for dissolved oxygen in the water. So by removing the dam, not only did they open up passage for fish to move upstream, got rid of all of that sediment and created nice stream habitat, but also addressed the major dissolved oxygen levels in that whole central part of the East Branch.
You're obviously, a slightly different subject, obviously focusing on the rivers in the watershed area.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of lakes in the watershed area as well. Some flow into the rivers, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any help available with the kind of techniques that you have to help analyze the quality of the lakes in the watershed area?
We have not focused on that at this point. It's something that we could work with, like if I know some of them are in subdivisions, and we have talked to a couple of residents who live in those subdivisions who are getting some water quality testing done. And it's definitely something that we could talk with those residents as far as what they might be sampling for. But at this time, we're not set up from a budget standpoint to be able to actually do the water chemistry testing within those lakes.
If you had the equipment and had one floater, if you will, maybe it could be used temporarily to look at one lake or another just to give them some feedback, because it's very difficult to tell the quality of the lakes. And
Mm-hmm.
happen to live on one of the lakes I'd like to see monitored.
Yeah.
We do some monitoring, but I'm not sure how effective it is. And you obviously have far better techniques than we do. And it would be nice if we could, borrow the equipment for a little period of time and get some data.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a baseline as to what we can do to improve the quality of our lake and other lakes around. So maybe it's something that the committee could consider.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer,
Yes.
this perhaps could be just a deviation from what we're talking about in general, but we have a couple avid fishermen on this board, I know, in the form of Mr. Trustee Fay and Mayor Collins and, I don't know, Mr. Lamb.
I don't fish.
Well, you don't fish, okay, you eat them, though.
We
Okay.
stock the lake, but I don't fish.
Recently, I was on the Illinois River canoeing, and the Asian carp were jumping all over the place.
Yep.
I know that's a major concern for the fisheries in the Great Lakes. Have the Asian carp penetrated into the DuPage watershed? And is it a concern even for us?
It is a potential concern. I mean, if they were to get here, but in Channahon, there is a pretty significant dam at the I&M Canal State Park that at this point I don't think they have seen any movement going, coming up that dam, because I think it's over 9 feet. So I mean, it's a good sized dam,
Sure.
and there's a lot of water generally coming over it. And that's one reason why that dam will never, more than likely, never be removed. We would love to see that dam removed from an ecology standpoint, because we lose, I think maybe 12 species of fish at that dam. So there's 12 species of fish more that we would find below the dam than we find anywhere in the watershed, because that dam stops their movement from coming upstream. So from a purely ecological reason, we would love to see that dam go. But looking at it from the, then pulling in this Asian carp issue, that's one reason why that dam will probably never be removed, and there'll probably never be fish passage put up around that dam for fear of Asian carp coming up into the DuPage.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
I think one last thing to mention, we have our next committee meeting coming up on the 17th, and it's actually going to be held across the hall here. Normally Doug graciously hosts it over at the Public Works Building, but this month we're doing something a little bit different and holding a sustainability forum. And so the idea of not only having our normal community representatives who normally come and deal with the generally wastewater or water quality issues, but also bringing other people from their staff who either work a lot more with the public, but also work on hosting different events, like the one you have coming up this weekend. We have a speaker coming in from Waste Management to really talk about some of the examples and projects that they've worked on no waste and less waste events, and so how to better manage trash and recycling and things like that at community events. We'll also have another presentation on the Conservation at Home, Conservation and Community program, which one of the examples actually that will be used is the program that we have with Conservation Plainfield as a great example of how we can work with communities and organizations within a community to really promote the Conservation at Home program. And then we'll also have kind of an open discussion with representatives from those communities. Just about every community and every organization out there has a green team of some sort and in some capacity. And so what can we learn from each other? What can different communities learn from each other as far as how they're getting messaging out? What types of programs are different communities doing, and how can we learn from each other? So we'll be holding that on Thursday from 10 till noon.
Jennifer, before you leave the podium, I know that this Wednesday evening, the Conservation Foundation and Conservation Plainfield are pairing up at the McDonald Farm. Can you give the address of that farm on Knock Knolls?
Sure. It's 10 South 404 Knock Knolls Road in Naperville.
Thank you.
So basically going up 59 to 95th Street. And as you take 95th Street east, it used to turn right into Knock Knolls, but now they've reconfigured the road a little bit. So once you're east of Plainfield Naperville Road, you can pick up Knock Knolls Road and follow it around right to the farm. And we'll have a number of examples of we have our butterfly garden, we have a wetland restoration project, rainwater harvesting, solar panels, wind power. So a number of things. There's going to be some tours and some presentations, and that's coordinated through, like Paul said, with the Conservation Plainfield. So the invite was out, and it's a special night for Plainfield residents.
Thank you.
And as Doug approaches the podium here, I wanted to say thank you to Ms. Hammer and Mr. Kissel for their hard work. Also for all the other volunteers that are on the coalition. And as the board is aware, but I wanted to make the public aware, it's not only representation from each one of the communities where individuals volunteer their time, but we also have residents that volunteer their time, attend the meetings, and are really get involved in the program. So it's great to see not only the buy-in from the other communities in the county, but also our residents too as well. The coalition is one of the first of its kind in the state, and it was actually kind of brought together by several different members to talk about what the condition and quality of the river was currently like, and what are the needs out there too as well. And it was intended to provide not only the most up-to-date, but also the most accurate information regarding the condition of the river. And it's great that the EPA recognizes this. We akin it to the traffic studies that we do along Route 59, where IDOT recognizes the data that we provide. The EPA recognizes the data and hard work that's completed by the coalition, and that is very, very important, especially when we're looking at future potential grant funding and potential future reasonable, what we call reasonable regulation in the future. So I have to commend all the individuals on their hard work, and I'll let Doug wrap it up with a final closing statement.
Okay. First, I did want to perhaps illuminate a little bit of an answer for Trustee Fay. I don't know if you're looking for specific tributaries.
I was mostly interested in agricultural runoff.
So we do some sampling. I'm going to list them out for you. And ultimately, that is one of the main friction points for what you're terming agricultural runoff. We would normally call it a non-point source, whereas a wastewater plant, which has a pipe hitting the river, is considered a point source. So you're absolutely correct. That is a huge concern, especially when it comes to nitrogen loading on the river. And we do look at, so here's my list of tributaries that we are sampling. We're at the West Norman Drain, Mink Creek, Springbrook Creek, Rock Run Creek, and Lilycash Creek. So in addition to a multitude of sites from Naperville down to Shanahan, we do branch off into those larger tributaries. The data collection essentially is what we are currently about. It is in an attempt to, as Mr. Person stated, to inform the EPA of what the conditions are locally. The EPA is running by a thread. Their budget is short as well. They would have perhaps 2 or 3 samples that they would collect on the river once a year, and from that information they would be instituting new regulations. And anyone who's been running tests or even goes out for a quote, you want to have at least 3 so that you have some idea which ones are in the right ballpark. And when the EPA came through and they did very limited sampling, it motivated the area, it motivated point sources and non-point sources to come together and start looking for a way to approach these issues with a more cohesive idea and to have some scientific basis for it. So that's been the thrust of our organization. And I too wanted to thank Ms. Hammer for all of her efforts. She winds up herding us together and keeping us all on track as far as town to town. It's a Herculean effort, but we all recognize the benefit that would come from compiling good information throughout the state ultimately, so that the EPA, the Illinois EPA, has the information they need to talk to the US EPA to bring down regulations that are sensible. So with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Reminders?
The 15th will be our next planning commission. 17th will be our next concert in the park. The 21st will be our next village board meeting. We have a movie on the 25th. And the 28th will be our next committee of the whole.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.